Hi year two, so I've got a story for us to read and it's called Harold Snipperpot's Best Disaster Ever. Some days feel like complete disasters. You feel turned upside down and it seems impossible that anything good could happen. Well, let me tell you the whole story from the beginning. It was 1 week before the disaster and I was about to turn 7. More than anything, I, Harold Philip Snipperpot, wanted a real birthday party. I'd never had one before because my parents hated parties. If you want to know why, it's because they were always very grumpy. They never hugged or laughed, and forget about a goodnight kiss, they barely even talked. So every year on my birthday, nothing much happened. But this year, I felt extra sad. So sad that my parents got worried. So worried that they decided to do something about it. We'll call up Mr. Ponzio, my mum said. Everyone in our neighbourhood goes to Mr. Ponzio with their problems. That's what his job is, to solve people's problems in very original ways. I don't have any kids to send over, but I've got another idea, Mr. Ponzio explained. Don't worry one bit, Mrs. Snipperpot. We'll throw Harold a party that will be absolutely extraordinary. But will it make our son happy? Yes, of course it will, he said. Trust me, he will never forget it. So my parents agreed. On the day of the party, our house looked great, all decked out with ribbons, banners, and a rainbow of balloons. When the doorbell rang, I ran to answer it. And wow! We couldn't believe what we saw. There were real animals, a long line of them, winding all the way up the street to our front door. We were flabbergasted. The animals made their way into our house one by one. At first, everything was fine, and my parents almost seemed to be enjoying themselves. But before too long, something changed. The animals began behaving like animals. Large mammals, I know, are born decorators. They immediately moved the furniture around and pulled open every drawer. A polar bear clawed the velvet sofa, while a small herd of sheep and pigs gobbled up all the stuffing and ate the cushions. A giraffe reached up and chomped on the crystals right out of our Art Deco chandelier, a family heirloom that was when my father collapsed. Upstairs in my room, an elephant was taking a nap in my bed and, oh no, completely squashed my new electric racetrack. Where was Mr. Ponzio? This was a mess. Meanwhile, a medium-sized flock of birds flew into the kitchen and performed a symphony on my grandmother's china. A family of turtles and their reptile friends demolished my father's library and gnawed through an entire shelf of his rare books. A hippo found her way into the bathroom, ran a bath and decided to soak for a while. All her pond pals followed, overflowing the tub and flooding the floor. My poor mum, she was too afraid to look. Frolicking in my mum's wardrobe were a seal, 3 monkeys, an armadillo, and more, trying on her satin skirts and her silk scarves and tearing them to shreds. A goat was wearing her shoes. Our house was destroyed, ruined, turned upside down. Worse yet, it was buried under a carpet of animal poo, often every type, which really stank. The party was absolutely extraordinary, all right. Just then, a huge alligator flashed 2 rows of sharp teeth at my parents, who, utterly terrified, jumped into an old steamer trunk. Oh no! The lid snapped shut and it locked them inside. I was trying to saw the lid off to free them when out of nowhere, Mr. Ponzio appeared waving a stick. All the sight of the stick, the elephant panicked and stomped towards the door. I had just enough time to grab its ears and the rest of the animals followed us. There I was on an elephant, galloping through town, while my parents screamed like crazy from inside the steamer trunk, which was now on top of a rhino. What a drama! But when I looked around, it all suddenly seemed very funny. Crowds of people gathered in the streets to snap photos of us, adding to the commotion, and it was then that I had the greatest idea. I, Harold Philip Snipperpot, took charge and led the entire parade towards the fountain, where each animal stopped and took a sip of water, including a rhino who dropped the steamer trunk, which fell to the ground and finally opened. My parents climbed out looking very relieved, and in front of everyone, I could hardly believe it, gave each other a giant hug, just like in a movie, and they hugged me. Seeing those hugs, the chameleons displayed their prettiest colours, which reflected in the water and lifted up the entire park. Children from all over the neighbourhood ran to see. Some climbed the necks of the giraffe, whilst others sat atop of the alligator's back, and others gave the lion a new hairdo. As for me, my mum swept me up into the air as I laughed and laughed. "Happy birthday," yelled my father. "Happy birthday," screamed all the kids. I was so happy I began to cry real tears. "I'm having my very own birthday party," I shouted. Since that day, my parents and I meow, growl, whinny and moo. We open our mouths wide and roar with laughter. And if we have something important to say, we snort. "How funny," said my mum, "that the animals made us feel more human." Mr. Ponzio is our friend now. He's fixed a lot of the broken stuff in my house, even my electric racetrack. So do you see what I'm trying to say about disaster? When a disaster strikes, unbelievable things really can happen. I hope you enjoyed it. See you soon.